The name of Captain Elias Blackthorne had been whispered in the darkest corners of the world for centuries. His was a legacy built on fear and mystery, the kind of tales told in hushed tones around campfires and in the backrooms of seedy taverns. He was no ordinary pirate. His ship, the Vengeful Spirit, was said to be a vessel of supernatural power, emerging from the mist without warning and disappearing just as suddenly, leaving behind nothing but wreckage and ghostly echoes. But what truly set Blackthorne apart from the scores of other pirates who roamed the seas was not just his ruthlessness, but the treasure he left behind, a treasure of unimaginable wealth and dark, unfathomable power. The legend of Captain Blackthorne and his treasure began on the island of Tortuga, where he first set sail under a black flag. Tortuga was a haven for pirates, outlaws, and those who thrived on chaos. It was here that Blackthorne assembled his crew, men as feared and ruthless as he was, each with a past soaked in blood and sin. They became more than just a crew. They were a family bound by the pursuit of fortune and vengeance. Blackthorne's thirst for power had been ignited by the murder of his father, a simple merchant sailor, at the hands of the British Navy. From a young age, Elias had sworn to take revenge, and over the years, he had made good on that vow, taking down ship after ship, leaving a trail of destruction in his wake. But revenge was not enough. He wanted more. He wanted to be remembered, not just as a pirate, but as something greater, something eternal. One stormy night, in the depths of the Caribbean Sea, Blackthorne and his crew came across a dying shipwreck survivor, a Spanish sailor whose mind had been shattered by the horrors he had witnessed. The man babbled of a cursed treasure hidden deep in the heart of an island that appeared on no map, an island said to be the dwelling place of ancient gods who had long since turned their backs on mankind. The treasure, he claimed, was guarded by spirits and demons, and those who sought it were doomed to lose their souls. This tale only fueled Blackthorne's obsession. He believed that if he could claim this treasure, he would gain the power to become more than a mere man. He would become a legend that could never die. With the clues extracted from the delirious Spaniard, Blackthorne and his crew set out to find the mysterious island. After months of searching, battling fierce storms and rival pirates, they finally found it, a mass of jagged rocks and dark forests, shrouded in eternal fog. The island was unlike anything they had ever seen, a place where time seemed to stand still, where the air was thick with the stench of decay, and the trees whispered secrets in languages long forgotten.
As they ventured deeper into the island, the crew began to feel the weight of the curse. Shadows moved in the corners of their vision, whispers filled their ears, and their dreams were haunted by visions of death and torment. But Blackthorne was undeterred. His eyes, once filled with rage, now burned with an unholy fire. He was close, so close, to his goal, and he would not be stopped by mere ghosts. Finally, they reached the heart of the island, a massive cave, its entrance guarded by the skeletal remains of those who had come before them. The cave walls were lined with ancient carvings depicting scenes of sacrifice and dark rituals. At the center of the cave was a stone altar, and atop it the treasure chest filled with gold, jewels, and a strange, black orb that pulsed with an eerie light. As Blackthorne approached the chest, the air grew colder and the ground beneath his feet began to tremble. The spirits of the island, angered by the intrusion, rose up from the shadows, their wailing cries echoing through the cave. But Blackthorne, driven by his obsession, ignored them. He reached out and touched the orb. In that moment, the curse of the treasure was unleashed. The spirits swarmed around him, their icy fingers clawing at his flesh, but Blackthorne did not scream. Instead, he laughed, a mad, hollow sound that reverberated through the cave. The power he had sought was now his, but at a terrible cost. His soul was bound to the treasure, and he would be forever cursed to guard it, trapped between life and death, a wraith bound to the island and the sea. The crew, terrified by what they had witnessed, tried to flee, but the island would not let them go. One by one, they were consumed by the spirits, their screams joining the cacophony of the damned. Only a handful managed to escape, rowing desperately back to Asterisk. The vengeful spirit Asterisk as the island disappeared into the mist behind them. Those who survived swore never to speak of what had happened, but the story spread nonetheless. Over the years, many tried to find Blackthorne's treasure, lured by the promise of riches and power, but none ever returned. The island became a myth, a ghost story told by sailors who had heard the whispers of the dead on the wind. Centuries passed, and the legend of Captain Blackthorn and his cursed treasure faded into obscurity, relegated to the pages of forgotten history books and the tales of old men in seaside taverns. But the island remained, hidden from the world, a dark, silent sentinel over the treasure it guarded. One day, a young treasure hunter named Amelia Graves stumbled upon a map in an old, dusty tome while exploring the ruins of an ancient monastery in Spain. The map, written in a language she did not recognize, depicted an island that did not exist on any modern chart. Intrigued, Amelia began to research the legends surrounding the map and soon found herself immersed in the story of Captain Elias Blackthorn.
Despite the warnings and the tales of curses, Amelia was determined to find the treasure. She had spent her life chasing the thrill of adventure, and the prospect of uncovering a lost relic of history was too tempting to resist. With a small crew in her ship, the Tempest, she set sail for the Caribbean, following the cryptic directions on the map. As they neared the coordinates indicated by the map, the seas grew rough, and a thick fog descended, obscuring their view. The crew, seasoned sailors all, began to whisper among themselves, uneasy at the unnatural stillness that had fallen over the ocean. But Amelia pressed on, her eyes fixed on the horizon, where the outline of the island slowly began to take shape. When they finally landed, Amelia felt a chill run down her spine. The island was just as the legends described, a desolate, foreboding place, where the trees seemed to reach out with skeletal fingers, and the air was heavy with the scent of rot. But she was undeterred. She had come too far to turn back now. As they made their way through the island's dense forests, Amelia could feel the presence of something watching them. Something ancient and malevolent. The crew grew more nervous with each passing hour, and a few even begged her to turn back. But Amelia was driven by the same obsession that had consumed Blackthorn centuries before. She needed to see it through to the end. They reached a cave at the heart of the island just as dusk began to fall. The entrance was overgrown with vines, but the ancient carvings were still visible, their lines sharp and clear despite the passage of time. Amelia felt a surge of excitement as she entered the cave, her torch casting flickering shadows on the walls. There in the center of the cave was the chest. It was just as the legends described, untouched by time, with the black orb still pulsating with that strange otherworldly light. Amelia's heart raced as she approached, her hand trembling as she reached out to touch it. But as her fingers brushed against the orb, the air around her grew cold, and a low, ominous growl echoed through the cave. Amelia stepped back, her breath catching in her throat as a figure began to materialize before her, a tall, gaunt man with hollow eyes that burned with a sickly green light. It was Captain Elias Blackthorn, his body twisted and decayed, but his presence as terrifying as ever. "You should not have come here," he rasped, his voice a hollow whisper that sent shivers down Amelia's spine. "The treasure is cursed. It is mine to guard for all eternity, and those who seek it are doomed." Amelia stared at him, her heart pounding in her chest. She had always considered herself brave, but now, standing before this apparition of death, she felt true fear for the first time in her life. "I've come too far to turn back now," she managed to say, though her voice wavered. "I want the treasure."
Blackthorn's hollow laugh filled the cave, a sound that seemed to shake the very walls. "Then you shall have it," he said, his voice dripping with malice. "But know this. By taking it, you will share my fate. You will be bound to this place, cursed to guard the treasure until the end of time." Despite the warning, Amelia's greed got the better of her. She reached for the chest, her hands shaking as she opened it. The gold and jewels inside were more magnificent than she had ever imagined, but as she looked upon them, she felt a deep, gnawing dread in the pit of her stomach. Suddenly, the spirits of the island rose up around her, their wails piercing the air. Amelia screamed, trying to flee, but it was too late. The curse had taken hold. Her crew, waiting outside the cave,